Thanks very much, Colin. I was a member of the SNP and stood on that manifesto in the 2011 election. But at the conference just about a year and a half later, when the issue of NATO was on the agenda, you can imagine that it created a huge controversy within the party. Although John Finney and I did, after a couple of days, as you know, if you join a party, it's hard to leave. It's really hard to leave, and I think I speak for John. I know I speak for John as well to say that was a really. I don't feel that I've ever deliberated on anything. I sleep really, really well. Clear conscience, you see. But I didn't sleep for 2 nights. I was just really distraught by what had happened at conference, and just so that you know that, there was both John and I spoke, of course, opposing the motion that that an independent Scotland would be a member of NATO. And our amendments, or our opposition to it, was actually lost by 29 votes. Now that might sound quite a lot, but I think I'm right in saying there were over 900 delegates. So I think it's important to say that although we did leave the party because we felt for me, I just couldn't, one of the reasons I joined the party was because it had an anti-NATO policy. But it would be fair to say that I would say that there are still, potentially I believe that there's probably still a majority of members of the Scottish National Party who are opposed to NATO. And that, I think we have to say that because just because they've remained members of the state there, I know that there's a number of MSPs too who stayed with the party, and I have to say I'm really glad they did. There was a moment when we felt there was another couple of members who might have left at the same time, and we would have left the government. And I still feel a bit of irresponsibility in one way that we talked to them and persuaded them not to, or at least they decided not to. We made the case that they shouldn't, and that potentially that was enough. Whether that was the right thing to do or not, I don't know. I still vote with the government if in Scotland if it's a manifesto issue that I was elected on, because I think that's the right thing to do. The reason I was so anti-NATO, and I suspect that you, I hope that you feel the same. I didn't really know very much about NATO. I've been a member of CND and I went to Greenham Common and was fairly active in that for a number of years. And then I left. I was living in Glasgow at the time, and then I left and went to the Highlands. And that's when NATO actually came into my life, literally, because I suddenly was aware of just how much control and freedom they have across the Scottish Highlands, particularly Highland mainland, but the islands as well. So the bombing range at Cape Wrath, the potential for a NATO base at Stornoway was something that we strongly opposed. Unfortunately, most of the people on the island, and again, I can't tell you that we won the day. There were about 300 of us lay down on Stornoway airport and spent a couple of nights in the locked up. As a result of that, but I'd like to think that we contributed to something. At least we raised the issue and had a lot of support that they shouldn't be allowed to have a base there. Their permission to fly and bomb the bombing range at Cape Wrath, I have to tell you, is horrendous. And the British state's involvement in that is appalling, in as much as they have a certain number of people in the community that they pay as observers to talk to other members of the community that everything's okay. They missed bombing the village Durness, Cape Wrath, by about a quarter of a mile about 3 or 4 years ago, literally, because there is a kind of gung-ho attitude in NATO exercises. There's no precision. The number of low-flying aircraft that have gone into hillsides, we never hear about these things, but they are happening all the time. They abuse the minimum flight regulations, so we see NATO exercises, whether they're from America or Germany, wherever, low-flying over villages at a height that's unacceptable. I mean, I'm not saying that you can see the eyeball of the pilot, but you can certainly look at his earlobe as they go past. So, you know, the abuse, I think, of the people who live in that part of the world, and their strength in this country, because I don't think they have to tell anybody anything. I mean, there was a recent incident too, again in Durness, where they've really destroyed. Now, there's an issue just now about land that the Ministry of Defence own. They made a bid to buy, and the local people, actually, and I don't know quite where the strength came from, because they were pretty cowed. Most people would say, well, you know, it's okay, and it brings money. This is always the carrot, you know, it brings money. The hotel would shut, and all these things would happen if NATO weren't allowed, if we didn't have the MOD exercises and NATO involvement. But they have registered their interest to buy the land, and they've been supported by the Scottish Land Fund and the Scottish Government to do that, which will change things potentially. They don't have it yet, and the issue is still live. So why would Scotland, I mean, you know, we're not talking about membership of the Rotary Club or something like that. We're talking about a first strike policy, a nuclear strike policy organisation, basically run in America and maintaining the whole industrial complex that not only Britain benefits from, but of course has a very strong voice in the American government. So the potential for Scotland, not only to be rid of Trident, I think, is really appealing to a lot of people in Scotland. The notion that we could, on the one hand, be rid of Trident, because we would have a right to do that, and on the other hand, that we would join an organisation that would want us to keep it and could make it very difficult for us not to have it, seems to me doesn't make political sense. And I think I know why Alex Salmond was convinced to do this, and I believe he was convinced by other members, particularly the defence spokesperson, who's an MP, and I think it was because he felt that people making the decision about voting for independence would want some kind of security, to feel that we weren't out there on our own and any other aggressor could come in and overrule Scotland. I know it sounds really stupid, but I think it seems to me that in the defence, whatever defence of our nation that we will have in an independent Scotland, we first of all need to do an exercise that says who are our enemies. I mean, who are the bogeymen? Who are the enemies of Scotland? And then you start to look at it quite differently. So I think I'm right, and I think that with the right kind of debate and people who know better and more than I do, and they're there. There's a number of academics who are well versed in this, who are very clear about the way forward for Scotland, and it's not as a member of NATO. So I hope that when in an independent Scotland, because I suspect this isn't going to be debated before then, that either through the written constitution will become incredibly important, and at the point where we declare that it will be nuclear free and that there will be no nuclear weapons on our soil, I hope that NATO says, well, we don't want you as a member in any case. But I don't think it will be that easy. I think that's going to be one of the biggest issues that will have to be debated in the Scottish Parliament and with the Scottish people. So although I left the party because of that, I don't think the problem has gone away, and I hope that we keep the defence of our nation fairly high up the agenda, and that we're very clear about its position on non-nuclear in our written constitution. Just to talk generally about, I think there's a number of things that the referendum is not. And I think that we have to be aware constantly, and I don't have to say this to the socialist movement in Scotland, I'm sure, of the media. I mean, the media now, I think, are using Alex Salmond in a really pretty distasteful way. Whatever you think about Alec, whether you like him or like his style or don't like his style, he's brought us to this place. Because I don't doubt that without Alec, the party wouldn't be here, and without the party being here, this debate wouldn't be happening at all. So he has his place in history, but for the media to use him, suddenly he's become the bogeyman, this madman, Alex Salmond, and he's referred to all the time. It's as though there is no movement in Scotland, there's only Alex Salmond, and there's hardly the SNP anymore. So I think we need to be aware of that and challenge that at every possible chance. I don't read anything about a movement in Scotland, and yet I know it exists. And if I can, I don't know if any of you are from the Highlands and Islands, but for the, lots of times when you live up there in the scattered communities and all of that, it's quite hard to get a kind of cohesive movement going. And when people started, we all get quite excited. I mean, the anti-NATO stuff was really good because it really did bring a lot of people together. But I can tell you, as a self-appointed spokesperson on behalf of everybody there are RIC movements and members and supporters from Shetland to the Western Isles, Murray, Caithness, Sutherland, Inverness, Urquhart. There's socialists who are holding meetings and saying no. There are people who have never been a member of any party who have signed up to the Yes campaign, are being encouraged by them to hold meetings locally, given a list of potential speakers. And I was just saying earlier to Alan, it's fantastic when people who haven't been involved before get involved, because you get an amazing meeting. And for speakers particularly, I mean, I turned up to a group of people in Aviemore, none of them having been politically involved before, very apologetic about, we don't know how many people are going to come, and you remember that responsibility when you ask somebody to come and speak, how many folk are going to be in the hall, and a table groaning with bacon, tea, all kinds of things. But this won't last, they'll...
What was our scones and
I cooked it, basically.
But they were expecting about 30 or 40 people, and they had 220. So, I'm going back to the Alex Salmond and the media. None of that is being reported, and all of that is needed to give people in Scotland confidence. That it's not just here, it's not just this room in Edinburgh, it's everywhere now. I guess that we could all be out 2 or 3 nights a week, an hour, some weeks talking at meetings like this, and it's difficult to get yes and no debates going because the Better Together, I think, almost have a policy now. I've noticed that we've had 1 or 2 meetings cancelled, or I've been invited to speak at meetings that have been cancelled because they couldn't get a Better Together speaker. On the one hand, you say, oh well, that shows you. On the other hand, the meeting didn't happen. And that's what we have, that's another issue I think that we have to combat, because they could stop the debate by not turning up and manage to do that. So we're trying always to say, well, come and speak provided you go ahead with the meeting regardless of I know somebody from the Better Together campaign. So it's not about Alex Salmond, it's not about England or dislike of English folk. And that's really important too, I think. And it's not a general election. It's not about party policies. I'm not going to vote no because I don't agree with an SNP policy or somebody else's policy. It's actually just about us. And in a sense, I think it's about us as an individual. Because when we go into that ballot box and are faced with yes or no, it is actually about how we feel and what we believe to be the right thing. And that's what I think. When people say, well, I'm not sure, I haven't got enough information, there'll never be enough information. I don't think there'll ever, all the questions will not be answered, in spite of the white paper. And although we can challenge some of the issues in the white paper, it's a fantastic document to have put together. And I do try and encourage everybody just to get a hold of it, because it's quite an interesting read, for all it's a heavy tome. But I don't think there's ever been such a document for any country to start looking at every aspect of its governance. So, and the other thing I say to folk quite often is that there was a tapestry in the Scottish Parliament last year, the Great Tapestry of Scotland. People queued up to see it. I think it's coming back this year because it's so popular. But it recorded 420 million years of Scottish history. And then I thought, and the Act of Union is 300 years. So it's not even yesterday dinner time in the greater scheme of things. This document that was signed by a handful of men, no democratic process, English Navy and the 4th English Army at the border. Not saying there was much pressure on them or anything like that. But, surely, at the very least, it's time to review that. It's never, ever discussed until now. So can we know what that Act of Union is? The political union, and that's all this is. In a way we can kind of diminish it to that, because it seems to me that 300 years, folk live to be 100 now, so it's like 3 generations, it's nothing. So why would we continue with that if it's not in our best interest? Questionable whether it was in our best interest ever, but even if we accept that maybe it was at that time, we have to say, evidence shows that it's not in our best interests now. And just going back to all these groups, I really smiled when I saw Blair Jenkins' piece in the Sunday Herald last week, I think, when he said the Yes campaign is out of control. And I just think that's brilliant. And it's thanks to everybody and all of you who are doing that more and more people are seeing that there's something to fight for. There's something worth having conversations about. And they are happening. They're happening in pubs and bars. I came in from the airport a couple of weeks ago, I was in Shetland. I came in and there were 2 wifeys sitting in the chair behind me, and they were talking about the independence referendum. And that's only going to increase. And we have to make sure that one of you, one of us, somebody is there to balance that argument, to keep giving people, the courage. Because if we accept that people have not been politicised in this country for a very long time, and they've not, we don't look at our, the ballots are appalling in the small number of people who go out to vote, whether it's local elections or whatever. So how do we really charge them up? And I think that we who believe that voting yes is the right thing to do for our country actually have to take on a bit of responsibility for that and talk to people they can do in their country. And people are going to vote yes, I'm sure, for a myriad of reasons. There were two guys who came to fix or just do the annual visit on the boiler on the central heating system in the flat that I live in Edinburgh a year past, and we got talking about it, and they said, no interest in snow for the lights last year. We're not going to vote. I don't know, what's it all about? And they came back last year. It was a year past November they were there. They came back this year, and I happened to be in the flat. And they came in, they went, oh, we're glad you're in. We're based voting aye. And I said, well, that's fantastic. I thought I must be, I must have influenced them last time they were here. But I got talking to them, and they went, no, just for a laugh. But never mind. They're going to vote. One of the things I think that is really essential is the fact that as Jerry Hassan coined the phrase, the missing million, and that's probably key to our winning this referendum. The million people who don't vote, that we take the chance to knock their door, ready with the registration form was done, I think, in Easter House last weekend. But that's key. Let's see not only a yes vote, not only a win for Scotland, but a huge percentage of people wanting that to happen. Thanks very much.